technical difficulties, and live was cut off after 3 minutes. So let's try again. Good evening. With me, Peter, father of two grown-up children, both girls, landlord from Barnsley, author of three property investment books, who has been recently in Costa Rica for 10 months. This was after his return flight was cancelled, and then he had some medical complication, which was treated in Costa Rica with their excellent private medical facilities. So what happened? While he was waiting for medical clearance, Costa Rica was placed on a red list of countries. Therefore, he was forced to stay at the paid-for accommodation in London that he refers to as a quarantaine hot hell, wordplay from hotel. And you basically found yourself trapped in the horror of recent sanitary regime, subject of bullying and intimidation. That's why we connected, and we want to expose this and make public aware of what is going on, because that way of treating people is not acceptable. So again, off to you if you can tell how it started, what's the story.
Well, actually, I think, come to think of it, we got connected when I started posting about the breakfast we were getting, the
Mhm.
pathetic hot breakfast. So I kind of posted that. I was a bit like, I don't know. It was just a bit of a joke, I thought. So I put it on, on Facebook just to show what we're getting for £1,750. And then I posted a bit more about the food. Somebody connected you with me. I think they said, "Hey, look at this, Radic," etc. And then in between that, I had a bit of a situation at my door with one of it's called the liaison officer, so one of the people here. And I thought I was asking reasonable questions, and then all of a sudden he's jumping at me and showing me this list of fines. If I don't do this, I get fined that. If I don't do that, I get fined this. And I put that on Facebook, and I know you saw that as well. And quite a lot of people reacted to that with shock and horror at that kind of behaviour. Even put that on LinkedIn and got similar responses. And then, well, we arranged to meet after you'd been to Trafalgar Square the day after on Sunday. So and you came to video, and then I met the same guy, and then he's also then threatening to stop a 15-minute break. We're allowed 15 minutes outside every day, and he was threatening to stop that as if like he has the power, and it seems like he does. It seems like the police support him in that he has the power to stop that if he wanted. And so you really need to see the videos to understand what I'm saying, and I think they say everything. But so you can check on my profile there the videos they posted up to see, as well as the pathetic food we get, which that's kind of one thing, but the behaviour that you see from the people is totally unacceptable.
Word gone nuts recently, and I admire that you're doing this because we need to take a stance and say that certain things are not acceptable. Most people, they just try to ignore things, just close eyes on them, and just get by. And I don't think dealing. I call this psychology of bullying. I do believe strongly that if we accept the bullying, we will only get more bullying. So that's not the way to actually deal with this. So, in my opinion, we need to challenge this. So, like making public aware of this situation, like showing your story. So that's a message to say no to this. Like,
Yeah, and I think the thing was, after we did that second video, I put the second video on where you were there and you were trying to film me in the car park. They said they were going to get the police to move you, if you remember. They actually
yes,
said that.
I was waiting in the heavy rain, but I
Yeah,
had to move at certain time,
yeah.
and
So, well, police are never the fastest anyway. If there's anything they need to attend, so I guess they wouldn't get there in time. But anyway, after 20 minutes or something, maybe half an hour after you'd left, I got a knock at my door. I was actually talking to my sister on the phone at the time. So I got a knock on my door, and I thought, well, I'm carrying on talking to my sister. I don't want to waste time with these people anymore. And then they start banging even more. And my sister said, what's going off? I said, I don't know, somebody's at the door. And anyway, I thought, well, if they want to come in, they probably can come in because it's only a programmed key. And sure enough, two police came in, just let themselves in, and said, we've seen the CCTV. It's out of order what you're doing. You need to follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, then you're going to be fined. And then they said, we can fine you £200, which I started laughing at because I said, really? £200? You can fine me £200? I said, do you know how much it's cost me to get myself in this situation? Another 200 ain't going to make too much of a difference to what I've actually had to pay. Considering the flight, the accommodation, and the fact that I had to stay in Charles de Gaulle Airport for 5 nights waiting for somewhere to go. So it was quite laughable, really. And I didn't really pay any attention to them. I just listened to them, and then they just, after they'd given this whole threat of the fine, which they never did, they just turned around and went out. But they were basically saying, we back up the guy. They said, you got to listen to them. They're only doing their job, etc., etc. Well, I don't agree with what he's saying. So that's why he was telling me to move. They just tell you to do this, do that. Like, you have to accept orders.
and you've committed no crime. That's why it's outrageous because like I think as far it goes, even prisoners they have more relaxed regime in that
Yeah,
regard.
yeah, and better food, I would say. So
And
we probably treat
paying
worse than prisoners, I would say. I mean, okay, from the past, no, but when there's been prison reforms right now, I mean, they're living in the hotel and we're in the prison.
for which you have to pay on top. I was wondering, there was a question in my mind, what would happen if, say, you're coming back and you've got no money? How does this work? If you would have no money left, let's say you're going back from holiday, you've just spent your hard-earned money, and you just want to go back home, and all of a sudden you're getting news that you need to now pay £1,750 for this lovely accommodation. How does this work out?
Well, you can, and you if you don't book a hotel, you don't get they give you an invoice number, and for your what's they called PLF, property locator for I think it's
Passenger.
personal passenger. That's it, passenger locator form. So they know where you're going. So you do the PLF, the passenger locator form, and for that you need to put in an invoice number of what you've paid for. For the hotel, for the quarantine hotel stay, depending which country you come from. But if you're coming from, like I was from Costa Rica, you have to put in the receipt number or the invoice number. So without that, you can't fly. Because I tried to get on the flight when I arrived in Charles de Gaulle, from Costa Rica, the connecting flight, which was 6 hours later, and I couldn't book the hotel because it says there is no hotels. Although at one point it said, we're processing your application. So I thought, bingo, I've got something. It said, we're processing your application. You will get something by email. I never got anything by email. So I phoned them up and they said, there's no processing. There's nothing being processed. You can't come. I said, well, my connecting flight's next. So I went down. So I didn't have a passenger locator form. So they didn't know which property I was coming to or anything, which hotel. So they wouldn't let me on. and the travel agent said, just tell them you'll take the fine when you get to the UK because you'd be fined otherwise. And I said, I'll take the fine. And fine would have been cheaper, to be honest, and better. So I told the guy who was letting people on that I'll take the fine. He just said, no QR code, you don't come on. So it's as simple as that. And if you don't have the hotel booking, you don't get the flight. That's Air France. I guess it depends which country you're coming from, because Costa Rica actually let me on without it. It was the connecting flight from France that wouldn't let me on. But quite possibly you just can't come back. And the joke, even bigger joke, is that I was using a credit card to book this hotel stay on, and it didn't book. So I phoned the bank up and I said, can you check? They said, the problem is that the booking end, not your end. We said, we've authorized the payment, but the booking end can't receive it because they don't have their systems up to date. There's something called PSD2. Don't know what PSD2 is, but they said they need it to be PSD2 compliant to accept any payments over £1,000. And so I then had to use a debit card, and I had one with an overdraft facility on it, actually. And I used that to make the booking. Or else otherwise, yeah, like you say, what do? You're stuck. You can't come back.
So you would be stuck in France?
In France or possibly Costa Rica. The only reason I managed to get on the flight from Costa Rica was the travel agent said, explain to them the situation, that you've gone to book a hotel and it's saying that they're full. You're going to sort it out when you get to Charles de Gaulle, because, that can't be right, can it? You would have thought it can't be right, because you need to book a flight before you can book the accommodation. So once you book the flight, you would expect, therefore, there's enough accommodation, but there wasn't enough accommodation. So I booked the flight, and then it said you need a seat number as well. So I thought, okay, I've got to go to the airport to get the seat number. I've got to check in, and then I'll book the accommodation. And there's still plenty of time because it's a flight from Costa Rica via Paris. So there's plenty of time to book. But I was quite shocked when I initially put the information in and it said there's no rooms. So the travel agent who was dealing from the insurance company with repatriation, because they've been dealing with the costs for my illness, and they said, we'll also extend it to repatriate you as well. So I have to pay for the flight, and maybe I can claim it back later. So anyway, they told me just tell them the situation and get on the flight. So I'm just following professional travel agent instructions there, and they let me on. So, okay, I can get to France. So I've got a bit closer. But if you get to France, then there's no way you can get back to the UK, because they take a harder line than they do in Costa Rica. Costa Rica's pura vida. It's like whatever. It's much more relaxed, So I guess it depends on the country you're actually in as to how strictly they will enforce the fact that you should have a QR code. So nowadays, if you get a boarding pass for a flight, that doesn't mean to say you're going to get on the flight. I had the boarding pass. That doesn't mean anything nowadays. You have to then get to the gate, you have to show the QR code, and sometimes even more. So when I actually got the connecting flight here, I had the QR code, and then they also wanted to see my booking receipt, not just the QR code. So you just don't know what they're going to ask. And then you need, of course, another PCR test, negative PCR test to get on the flight. So yeah, and that's another £100 and some. So if you don't have money, be careful about traveling, because I don't know how you get back.
So how much did you pay in total, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it was. So I got stuck. Well, I got stuck in Charles de Gaulle, so it was like €160 a night for a hotel, which was in the terminal. So I was pretty lucky there was a hotel in the terminal, because nobody was bothered. It's like, well, you can't go without the code, and there's not going to be any rooms until 5 days' time. So I had to book in the hotel, or else if there was no hotel, I would just be sleeping rough for 5 nights. And as it turns out, I booked two nights and then there was it was full, and then I booked another 2 nights. So just one night I had to sleep just rough in the terminal. And where I was in the terminal, the part I was in, the way Charles de Gaulle Airport is, there's no place for eating. It's just like a passageway between 3 gates. So 2E terminal, where I was, that leads to gates K, L, and M. And so I'm at the passport. I'm through passport control. I never went out into France because that could have given me other complications. So I'm on the passport control side, but I'm not where the gates are, where you can get something to eat. I had to come out of there to go to the hotel, and once you're out basically. So I had to just live on whatever the hotel had, which was just like nuts and snacks, things like that. There wasn't any proper food. It wasn't a proper hotel. It's just meant to be somewhere you put your head down for a few hours between flights. So maybe if you book the hotel there, you've got it from possibly from 6 in the evening, in the afternoon until 9 o'clock. That's all you have. You don't get a full day because they rent the room out during the day for people who's traveled overnight. So they want you out by 9 to clean the room by 11, and people will take the rooms for a few hours. So yeah, but that was 160 per night, and then the PCR test was 130 euros. And what else was there? I think that was it in terms of the major costs. And then whatever else, you try to buy some food, some snacks, so whatever that is. I found a vending machine in the end. I did find a vending machine, but nobody knew where it was. I just came across it walking around the airport, a vending machine, and I found somewhere where you could get some water. Before that, Air France desk just gave me bottles of water when I asked. That's the only place I could get some refreshments. So, but I'd phoned the embassy, and the embassy just weren't bothered. They said, well, it's your fault, and that's it. Nobody wants to take responsibility.
So what do you
So
mean
if you
that
don't,
it is? What do they mean by this is your fault? But
it
they
was,
were changing rules on the fly.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So what they
There was no
what
possibility
yeah
that you could print anything
no
like this.
what they said is you need to check the website every day. So in other words, they can change something in the website on the web page, and if you don't spot it, that's your problem. So basically, they're just changing the rule on the website as and when they want, but there's no like auto notification or something that says this is the latest change. They just change. It's like a book. You read it once, and then they're saying you're going to have to read it every day because they change it every day, or they could change it every day. If you don't spot the change, then they say, it's your fault. So they're basically saying we're posting the rules. If you don't comply, it's your fault. So
Un-
fortunately,
Unbelievable.
I had access to some funds, some of which are overdraft funds, and but I mean, if I didn't have the overdraft, because one of the cards got wiped out, I didn't think I'd need that much money to get back, so that stopped working. I had to use another card then, and like I said, they wouldn't take the credit card because they hadn't updated their systems. I don't think anybody really knows that. It's a new rule that's come out, and there's quite a few places being caught out with it, that you can't use the credit card for anything more than 1,000, and they're going to keep lowering it and lower it. And there's this protocol that the merchant banks need to comply with to take these payments. But you would think a site that's organized by the government, or the run by the company the government selected, would keep up to date with taking payments. But that's the reason they couldn't take my credit card. It wasn't my fault. NatWest said it's definitely them. Now, who am I going to speak to about that? You speak to these people, and they they can only advise on bookings. They don't know about the technology behind the bookings. It's like, am I supposed to ring up and say, can I speak to the web developer? the website developer or what do you do about that? So it's not only if you don't have cash, sometimes a credit card, you probably think if you've got a credit card, you're okay. Well, it turns out that that's not the case as well.
And
So you,
again, there is security in payments via credit card, while you don't get the same
yeah,
with debit card, so your money can be
yeah,
lost.
yeah. But
And like you said, because you're basically being caught in some sense with the pants down when you're coming back from holiday. I mean, anybody who was trapped like you, um, I'm pretty sure didn't budget extra £2,000 just to get back in.
No,
So that's naturally you would think to use emergency situation like credit
yeah,
card, and if you can't even use it,
can use it. And like I say, NatWest said is a problem at their end, but nobody's gonna say that, are they? I mean, there must have been other people in my situation that I don't know what happened to them because they wouldn't be able to get back. But I suppose most people wouldn't get on the flight like I did if they didn't have the codes and everything. I was just a little bit rushed to get on the flight, and the agent said, "Tell them you need to get on the flight," which I did, and they got me on the flight. So maybe normally you wouldn't be let on. So it would have been better if I'd have stayed in Costa Rica, to be honest. If they'd have said you just have to miss your flight because you don't have a hotel booking. But that's the crazy thing. You've got to have a flight number to book the hotel. So you got to book the flight first. But how do you know there's going to be? You don't know there's any rooms until you apply, but you can't apply without a flight number. So that's what's led to
and
the
you
crazy
don't,
situation.
and basically don't know what the rules are, and you might be even caught. To be honest, traveling internationally day by day, when they say it's not good enough, when they say that we will update page and you need to follow, because they can update this at any point. You might be during the travel, so things can change for you while you're actually in
Yeah,
the transit.
yeah,
And that's what bugs me. It's like I can understand the idea of quarantine when you would be showing symptoms, would be point of concern that you might be sick, yeah, but then quarantining healthy people. So as far as I can remember, so you told me that you're stuck for 5 days on the airport, but in order to get
yeah,
to airport, you already had negative test because you
yeah,
wouldn't be allowed for the
yeah,
flight. So you did negative test, then you spent 5 days on airport showing symptoms, not getting any fever or getting worse, but still you were stuck because of this booking complication. I'm just trying to
yeah, yeah.
cl-
And then,
clarify all this.
and then, yeah, that's true. And then, of course, the other PCR test has run out. So I have to get another PCR to be able to get the connecting flight. Um, so Air France said, well, you'll have to go outside the airport to get a PCR. And the insurance company couldn't work out how I could get a PCR where I was. Um, and nobody seemed to be able to help. So I just had to take my own initiative. And I heard there was a PCR testing inside a gate, in one of the gates. Now, I shouldn't get in the gate without the boarding pass. But it was a Sunday, and they said, you're probably not going to get a PCR anyway. And I needed it that day to get my flight that had been booked again for the 20th. So I just had to get a PCR on that Sunday. And I explained to the person at the gate who manages, like, when your boarding pass doesn't work, he takes a look at it and lets you through. So I spoke to him and I explained, look, here's my PCR. My PCR's run out. Here's my flight booking for a few days' time. I need a PCR. And I can't get a PCR anywhere, but I know there's a PCR inside this gate, or I've been told there is one. And he let me through. Now, nobody advised me to do that. That was my initiative. So there was no solution for me by anybody. If I'd just said, well, I need a PCR, they would have probably said, well, you can't get one until Monday. Sunday's a problem. We'll have to get you outside of the airport. They were saying, we'll get you outside the airport, but you'll need to be taken by an agent. So I had to wait for an agent. So I don't officially go through passport control to go to where the PCR tests are outside the airport. And then they said on a Sunday that's not going to be possible. So the outcome even of that would have been I would then have had to cancel another flight. So that was another cost. So that was about £150 for that flight. So that was on top of the hotel stays. So then I would have had to cancel that flight and booked another flight. I would have had to stay in the airport even longer, waiting for the next hotel rooms that were available and the next flight that's available. So, you're stuck in limbo. So my advice would be, unless you've got the QR code, for a 2-step flight, don't get on the plane because you might get stuck in a terminal. Strangely enough,
What do you mean? What do you mean by QR code?
QR code. So you've got to. So it's the passenger locator form. Yeah. So you fill in the passenger locator form, and it gives you a QR code. So basically, it just approves you to get on the flight. The QR code is the square.
So can you fill passenger locator form without test, or you need to have test in order to fill the locator form? There's an order of those things.
It didn't ask for it just said you need a negative test. Right. So the testing is something separate to the passenger locator form. The passenger locator form asks where are you coming from. It verifies where you've come from and where you're going, and then it takes you down. Once you put that information in, it'll take you down a route that if it's a red country, it'll say, okay, show us your invoice number for the hotel that you've booked. So you put the invoice number in, and then you've got to say when you're going to be arriving, where you're going to be staying, and then it'll generate a QR code for you, which then you show to the airline. The airline scan it, and it just says, yes, green, you can get on. So, but the COVID test is something you need to carry separately. It's like those don't get integrated. It's like there's no common system for recording COVID tests. It's a certificate. It's still a piece of paper at the end of the day, or it can be something printed on your displayed on your mobile device. So it can be paper or on a device. But in my case, I had a piece of paper in both cases. I printed. I like to make sure I've got paper, so I printed it out. And when I had the test done in Charles de Gaulle, they gave me a piece of paper as well. So you have to have the passenger locator form filled in to say you're complying with the arrival conditions. So if it's a red list country, you've got a quarantine hotel. And then you have the certificate separate for the COVID test, because they'll want to see that as well, or they should see it. And in honesty, she asked me, she said, okay, where's your passenger locator form? I said, it's here. It went ping, that's okay. Where's your boarding pass? It's here, that's fine, ping. And she says, and have you had a PCR test? I said, yes, and it's negative. She says, oh, that's good. And she let me on. So I didn't even have to show her the certificate, to be honest. I didn't show her the certificate. I could have done because it was negative. But so the PCR test, yeah, you need one, but they don't always ask to see it. And I've heard that from other people as well. Yeah.
I will try to show some of pictures. So just bear with me. I want to upload them. It might take a while. For those who haven't seen That's just the background. I'm not sure how to share the actual pictures. I will try to open the video.
You need to go back in your room, sir.
I didn't get all that. Can you just repeat to me?
Can you get security to send for the police?
Why?
Will
Because I just opened my door.
Yes. Can you get security?
No, I just wanted. No,
Don't get them.
listen to me. All I want to do is look at what you showed me there, because when I was trying to video it, I didn't get it. I thought I had. That's all I'm asking for. Why would the police be brought for me asking you to
Because
show
you're
me it again?
spreading COVID. It's quarantine facility. Get back in your room and
Show
shut
me
the
that
door.
other thing. Show me that other thing.
No, you don't dictate to me. Right, you're in the poo.
Quite shocking, this.
That's the same guy that we met, with the other video that I took yesterday. So we came across him again. But the police back him up on what he says. And that's why he's behaving like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They say
You're
disobeying the rules. Da da da. I mean, it's a nonsense.
I will try to smuggle some graphics in, which I want to show people. It allows me to play the video, but it doesn't allow me to actually, share the picture. And I wanted to show the type you were served. Did you have to pay something on top of that 1,750, or you were
No,
just stuck with what they were serving?
everything's supposed to be included. I mean, I've never paid, never paid that much for a hotel in my life per night. Let
Mm-hmm.
alone for it to be prison. But no, the food should be included. Everything should be included.
But that was quite shocking food, like really cheap things. You would get this on, I would say, um, I can't really comment. You wouldn't expect that to be a hotel type of food.
No.
When you got pack of crisps and chocolate bar, and that is
Yeah.
meant to be a meal, you would at least
Well,
expect that they would be cooking for you at
yeah.
the hotel, especially paying that price.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it'd be, 10 days in a hotel is bad enough, but I didn't think it'd be run like a prison, or else I wouldn't have come. And the food worse than prison food.
And basically attitudes and
Yeah.
all this intimidation. I've taken a screenshot of this page, which I can't quite share on this software, but I will just read some of them. So MQS behavior pathway, that's what it says. And what MQS stands for is managed quarantine service. So basically, any arrivals from red list countries, RLC, they have to quarantine in government um, designated hotel for 10 days upon arrival. And people failing to comply with mandatory quarantine, they face possibility of enforced action, including fixed penalty notice or prosecution. And that's the list of fixed penalty notice. They did typo here because they put FNP, should be FPN. So you see, they don't even print their own stuff right. So and there's list which I will read. So 5,000 fixed penalty note rising to 10,000 to red list country arrivals who fail to quarantine in an MQS following direction or willfully obstruct. Then second option, 1,000 fixed penalty notice to any international arrival who fails to take mandatory test, followed by 2,000 fixed penalty notice to any international arrival who fails to take second mandatory test. So that's what, £13,000 potentially, and £10,000, that's third option. £10,000 fine for red list countries arrivals who will enter UK via non-designated port. Fourth, 500 penalty rising to 4,000 for the fourth offence for failing to book quarantine package testing prior to departure. And fifth, at least £10,000 fixed penalty notice to international arrivals who intentionally or recklessly provide false or misleading passenger information. 500, that's option 6, 500 penalty rising to 4,000 for the fourth offense for providing false or misleading information. Oh, I just read that. No. It's just with shortcut. So if you provide misleading information on passenger locator form or you fail to complete passenger locator form, £2,000 fine for carriers or transporting passenger with no quarantine testing package booking. So I understand this is now targeting the carrier, so company that offers you flight, and 2,000 penalty to carriers who transport and red list country arrival to a non-designated port. So if they would do landing in the place where there's no quarantine facility. And then potential prosecution under the Fraud Act 2006 with penalty of up to 10 years imprisonment. That's what they voted, yeah? So you can have up to 10 years imprisonment for international arrivals who provide with false or deliberately misleading information on their passenger locator form to conceal that they have been in red list country in the last 10 days. So just look at the scale of this. So if you're rapist, or let's say if you've been charged with say whatever, like shocking offenses like pedophilia, you don't get that kind of sentences literally. And here, just for coming from holiday where you might in a good faith, you might just be not aware of all those rules changing so quickly. You can be imprisoned up to 10 years.
Yeah.
Where is proportionality of that? Where does it stand? When we were chatting, I told you that all those COVID fines, they were introduced with the Emergency Act. They were thrown away from court because they're contradicting the rules of law, like human rights, and they just can't be enforced in court of law. I will finish reading that page. Compliance with managed quarantine is heavily reliant on MQS, Managed Quarantine Service, guest compliance, which is monitored by visible security, provided by private security companies operating transport to the hotels and at the hotels. Security personnel currently have powers to direct MQS guests, but not to use reasonable force or to encourage compliance. If an arrival is refusing to go to managed quarantine, the police can remove them to the hotel and can use reasonable force to do so. Once the hotel has been booked through the emergency process, the other offences listed at the paragraph 2 would be dealt with directly by the police or border force in most instances. MQS plays a vital part in protecting the UK by reducing the risk of new variant of the virus being transmitted. So those guys in green vests, they were not hotel staff in that case. So the 13 guys, because I counted on that moment where
13.
we were
13.
13. I counted 13, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's not the all because
No, 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 no. There's plenty more inside. Plenty more inside.
so 13 people. That's what I counted just on the parking lot. So
Yeah.
I've just picked briefly. I just had a quick glimpse to the parking lot because they blocked the. It was on. It was ground floor car park. Yes, on under
Yeah.
the hotel base. So you could only park there a couple of cars. It was guarded with a metal fence, and this was like your prisoner walk. Yeah,
Yeah. Parade.
that was the only place. So now another quick question. So what in case if you're say smoker? So you're now forced to smoke in the room. This would be, let's say, against fire safety. And
No, they're not allowed. There is some rules somewhere that says they can't smoke. But however, I've seen them outside smoking. So I'm wondering whether they're not following their guidance because it's not possible. Every When I do go down, I'm told I have 15 minutes a day. Okay, I go down. I don't even want to go out there, to be honest. Why should I? It's nice to get fresh air, but I don't know. It's depressing to see everything that's happening. So I'd rather stay in my room. But when I do go down there, I often see similar people, and it can't be coincidence they go in at the same time as me, and they're usually smoking. So I think they're letting smokers out much more frequently than they write down. So basically, they write down that they have to manage their addiction. I think that's what it says. So there is something somewhere I've seen because I read through this document. It's called What to Expect. So if you Google something like what to expect, red list, quarantine, there's a government list of what to expect. And it tells you other things like you expect that it's going to take you no more than 90 minutes to get to your accommodation. Well, it didn't. It took, for me, 6 hours to get here. They were going to all different hotels. So it says what to expect. So I've read it through. I read it there about smoking. So if you want to read about what they're supposed to be doing, which seemed very unreasonable on smokers, but I don't think they're enforcing that here.
but other sorts of behavior. So can you, let's say, order yourself some shopping to your room?
Yeah,
So
yeah. In fairness, I did get when I first got here. I brought a printer with me from Costa Rica because I thought, well, I'm going to be tied up for like 10 days. I can get some stuff done with the printer. The printer didn't work on arrival; it had broken. Maybe just got damaged in transit. So I ordered another printer from Amazon, and I put my room number. And in fairness, okay, I can't say anything about that. They brought it to my room, so you can order things in. They're not cutting you off from that. It's just the way they treat you, as you've seen, which is for me out of order. It's it's run like a prison, but I mean, I guess even prisoners can get certain things taken in. So
now
maybe,
if we will look just where is science and where is logic of that? Because let's say this bloke that wasn't wearing his mask properly, that's to start with,
yeah,
and he was the person in charge, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
He's basically he's acting in that capacity. I would call him super spreader
yeah,
because he's coming to see every single one of people who are finding themselves
yeah,
in position
yeah,
like you. So
yeah,
if we're presuming that there is this thing called this serious disease that we shouldn't mention to not be banned. So if there's that serious disease going on, and this guy just walks from room to room from room to room, doesn't wear hazmat suit, yeah, he
yeah,
just have a flimsy
yeah,
mask which doesn't even cover his face, and he's also arguing with people. So I would say like
yeah,
nearly spitting on them when
yeah,
he's so agitated. And I guess when he finished his shift, he's just going home He's
Yep.
going to supermarket, church, or whatever, or maybe pub to watch the football because we just had the football games. Yeah. So where is sense of that? And like, so anybody, and even those two policemen who came to
Yep. They came in
bully
my
you,
room. They were
they
wearing
enter
helmets.
your room. So where is logic of that? Then they should quarantine next to you,
Yeah.
room next door. They should stay for 10 days to ensure that they're not carrying the deadly disease. Yeah, if that's the logic of that.
Mm. Yeah, it makes no sense. In fact, like I said to you earlier while we were off air, for the first time I had a sore throat. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, have I got something? And I'm thinking, well, the people like that guy at the door who's running this place, he doesn't wear a mask. I could have caught something off him. So if my next test proves positive, I've definitely caught something while I was here. And another thing, why, if we're so potentially dangerous, do they put everybody on arrival? We all got on the same bus from Heathrow Airport. They put us all on the same bus. So like we mix together and then they send us out to different different hotels. So they mix us together so we could catch it, and then they just send us off to different hotels, meaning we could spread it again. That's the ridiculous thing. The sensible thing to do, if it's so dangerous and real, is put you in a taxi, and the taxi takes you to the airport, and then you go straight to your room, and then they disinfect the taxi. That's
Let's
the
say even taxi, if that's so-called deadly thing, then the taxi driver should be in a hazmat suit at least,
yeah,
not to
yeah,
not to if we don't want to really pass it on, and then pretty much everybody who is handling you or like meeting you during the process of boarding and all stages, they pretty much everybody should be wearing the hazmat suit and should be getting disinfection after every passenger, or at
yeah,
least I don't know, after the period where he's dealing with the people. No, ideally should be disinfected after every interaction. That just makes no sense because you might not carry anything, but to,
hmm,
to person that is third behind you in the queue might be carrying something. So if this guy will connect with that person, yes, will catch the bug and will be dealing with passenger number 4, 5, 6, and onwards, then he will be super spreader for
yeah,
everybody else.
yeah. It makes no sense.
Makes no sense. And then also, the attitude. I, when I approached from front of the hotel, um, the security, they were really agitated. They were finger pointing at me, waving hands. They were even trying to take camera off me when
Hmm.
actually mm, they're no one who can actually do anything. I mean, they got no authority to do such thing. They can't go and confiscate
Yeah,
my equipment. They can't go into physical contact with guy like me. And in the first place, why did they? I didn't enter the facility. They come out to bully me. So now, if you think again, logic of that, if they're in contact with guys like you who allegedly came from so-called red list countries where you might be carrying this deadly thing, yes. So they in that case they got no hazmat suits and they can pass something on me or anybody who they're getting in contact with. And there was quite few people turning up to the hotel because I've seen literally like every 7 minutes, 5, 7 minutes, there was delivery driver bringing some food. Every different people, they
yeah,
were fetching some food
yeah,
to the hotel. So well, absolutely illogical, if you ask. And even this guy, because it was I entered their field of view first, and then I called you. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I was first on the. I mean, not on the parking lot. I was in the front of the entrance of the hotel,
Yeah.
and I started filming, and this basically steered them up. They just started running like angry ants, yeah, because they felt alarmed. That's where I counted like 13 people because they thought maybe I don't know, attack and will try to do something. I was filming in a public space, so I wasn't really filming anything that I shouldn't be doing, but I was there turning my camera for sake of privacy of people who are unfortunately trapped like you. So I did some close-ups on you, but you knew that you will be filmed.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't want to capture images of people who are stuck in this position, and they didn't allow this. But then, other than this, I'm filming public place, which is open, which is visible. I was in public place on a footpath, but they couldn't even say anything that I'm not allowed.
Hmm.
And if police would turn up earlier, I would happily discuss with them because there is so many breaches. Police should uphold the law, so they actually should help you.
Hmm.
Because if this regulation is contradicting to your law, then you're actually being victim, and that's something we must really now look into because except of stress, except of like traumatic experience, this bullying, intimidation shouldn't be taking place because it's not acceptable in a society. If this
Mm.
would happen to you in any other circumstances, you could either complain or take this further. Yeah.
I think it will be taken further afterwards. There'll be, we have to take it further because it's not acceptable.
Now think think about time. So even now, so this is day 11 for you. Do I got this right? 5 days on airport and 6 days in the hotel.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about 11 days when you showed no symptoms,
Yeah.
when you had no positive test. So you by the book. I mean, even if we stick to rule of 10 days, you should be sent home
Yeah. But
by now.
that's what I phoned up the other day and said that yesterday. I think it was. I said that to them, and they said, "No, government rules. You need to stay." That's all they say. Government rules. You need to stay. So I've written to. There's an email address you can. It's an NHS email address you can send an email to. To I think it's for complaining or yeah, I think it's for complaining. So I complained to this email address. This was yesterday or the day before. I forget. And I explained the situation that in fact it's 10 days ago since I was in Costa Rica, and I've had three tests since. I had the test before I came. I've had a test in Charles de Gaulle Airport. I've just had another test here. It's negative. Can't I go now because of this situation? No reply to that email. The same information I said to the advice number here that you have a number you can call. So I phoned the number and they just said government rules, government rules. You need to stay. Because the government rules are if you've come from a red list country in the last 10 days, then you need to go into a hotel. So, and that's true. However, they say the reason it's 10 days, so if somebody arrives straight away, they have 10 days here. Well, I didn't arrive straight away. I arrived via, Charles de Gaulle Airport, and it's still 10 days. But they let the other people go. So if somebody was on my flight that had all the documentation correct, they would have come straight to this hotel and they would have left yesterday. But
Mhm.
because I didn't have all the documentation and I ended up spending some of my time in Charles de Gaulle Airport, not in the country, but in the airport, then they don't let me go. So it's like Well, that doesn't fit the rules because they've never written a rule because they didn't expect to leave somebody in an airport for 5 days. That's not what they expected. That's not normal. Even though they blame you for that situation, that's not a normal situation. They don't dream to write a rule for that. So it's like they can't apply the same logic to an exception. There's nobody you can go to take a logical decision. It's just government rules, government rules. If it doesn't fit the rule, then then it doesn't happen. So if there's no rule for it, so there's no rule for somebody who got stuck in an airport for 5 days. So if there's no rule to say what happens, then you just have to comply with the rule to stay here 10 days, even though I didn't come until day 5. So it's good in the end, assuming I get out okay, and assuming that guy who wasn't wearing his mask, the super spreader, assuming the super spreader at the door hasn't given me something, which is possible. So let's assume that he hasn't, and assume that I get out. I'm going to be traveling over 2 weeks, 17 days to get back to home from setting off, which is crazy. 11 days traveling was bad enough, but 17 or 16 or 17 is, it's beyond a joke.
And especially that there's no clear evidence for them to justify this. I mean, this is like you said, this is just based on a rule, not on actual evidence that there's need to stop person.
The evidence is I've got 3 negative COVID tests.
On a space of how many days?
Yeah, about 10 days. And that's the incubation period, to say.
And that's another thing. I was always scratching my head about this. So, when you got this famous disease, where is that thing going in a space of 10 days when you're carrying this for 10 days? So where is that going when you're getting no treatment, you're getting no medication, you're not attended by doctor? It was meant to be so deadly. So why, if you survive 10 days, then where is that going? It's just so illogical, so absurd, I would say. And then there's one thing, irrational fear, but then there's actual cost of that, of all that. So now we're talking, because that's now being reduced to 10 days, but it used to be 2 weeks. You remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
You were for 10 months in Costa Rica, so
yeah,
maybe
exactly.
you were enjoying the paradise, so tropical climate. But so this used to be 14 days, 2 weeks quarantine, and this at certain point, I can't recall the exact date, has been changed to 10 days. So first question that comes to mind: how come we got this period of 14 days and now we're coming to 10 days? That's one thing. What is that vicious bug is changing mind or opinion that it will only attack on a space of 10 days or 14 days? But going further, with this time spent, it is cost. I mean, because you're not allowed to see your family, that's traumatic experience for you. You're stopped with all your activity, so you're making losses in your business, or say you're missing out on opportunities which you would otherwise undertake, and especially that you are a business person, you know value of your time. You're pretty organized, so to have 10 days taken out of your um, life, yes, in professional life, it's a big price, yeah.
Yeah.
And then personal price, because you can't see your family, you're stopped with the normal activities. You're in distress because you're definitely not enjoying the situation. That's why this quarantine hot hell analogy. This is a situation which is causing harm, loss, and who should actually, and you're being actually forced to pay for this.
Yeah.
It's so wrong on all those levels. So I would definitely, I would be taking this further. And if anyone who is watching us can give us some legal advice or connect us with a person who knows the law in that regard and can advise or guide that kind of claim, then please connect, because we can't accept this.
No, it's not acceptable. But all they say is government rules, government rules.
It seems that cat is getting out of bag. Before we went live, we were just having a quick discussion. Where is that heading to? And it seems to be more of ideas of control, which are absolutely not matching the um, this argument that we just need to isolate or we should reduce contact because we can spread this famous thing. Yeah, it just doesn't add up because uh, Prime Minister just said that since in September they want to introduce so-called I don't want to use V words. I will just use Jabberwocky words instead. So they want to use Jabberwocky passports, and they will be used to enter nightclubs or other public venues. So you'll need to have certificate of the actual injection of the certain substance that is being so heavily pushed and promoted and coerced on everybody. And now he said, that's his word, that negative test won't be accepted. So that means that you don't have the thing you can spread on others, but you will still not be allowed to enter the venues. How would you read that? So it's not about this vicious bug in that regard, in that respect. So that now just a means of the control. And they're just saying more and more that just the recent news out from this week, I've just um, I've just listened to some discussion on um, Talk Radio that they want to introduce an application which will be basically monitoring how people behave. So Chinese model, what do they buy, whether they exercise, whether they want to lose the weight. So basically every aspect will be monitored and they will be rewarded accordingly. So again, we're coming to the totalitarian set of rules for people which got no ground in actual there's no actual need for that other than government pushing for totalitarian control. And that's where we're heading. So if we don't say no, then we will be forced to live in that kind of arrangement. If you can if you can tell people what the police said to you when they enter.
Yeah, so I was on the phone to my sister at the time. So we just met in the car park. I say met, got as close as you can, of course. And so you were outside, I was inside, and then they said they were fetching the police for you to move you on. So I went back to my room, not expecting anything, and because they never said it was anything to do with me. But then 20 minutes later, half an hour later, there was a knock on the door, and I was talking to my sister. So I said, and I just ignored it, carried on talking. So I didn't want any more to do with them. And then, yeah, the door opened, and it was two police. And so they came in and they said, "We've seen the CCTV. You're out of order. We should be fining you, etc. Like I've said before, we should be fining you. And then they left. But one comment that they made, which was totally like just uncalled for, it's like a playground comment. The last time I heard reactions like this was in a playground, um, a school playground. But the woman police officer said, "Well, look, you know, if you don't want to be treated like this, it's simple. Don't travel." Well, why is she to tell me not to travel or not? And she didn't even know the situation that I've been ill. She didn't even want to know that. She just assumed I'd probably gone to a red list country for a holiday. That's her assumption. But why? Why should she say that? It's my choice if I want to travel. I just don't want to be treated like a prisoner when I return. What's wrong with that? But her solution was, if you don't want to be treated like this, don't travel.
It's unbelievable and shocking. I hope that you will take some action. The first thing you already did, which is getting this out there to um, awareness of people, just making it public. There's one thing which kind of amused me because we haven't been in touch earlier as such, and but we know each other from professional background, which is
Yeah.
property, and we're operating in the same town. And I've been building my network of contacts before this whole thing started, and I
Yeah.
had like 1,500 Facebook connection, which I would say maybe 500 people were people that I knew in person or family, relatives, friends. And then I kind of followed 1,000. I was very diligent. I was very selective who would I follow. I didn't want to see cat videos on my timeline, but I was carefully selecting people who were really, I don't know, leaders in their area. They were running business. They were into marketing, property. They were specialists in something. So they were very knowledgeable, and I wanted to follow them to learn more. And so I had like 1,500 connections. 1,000 of those connections, they were just professional people, business people. And when I started posting things like questioning this narrative and asking questions or say live streaming protests, I just saw my friend list just dropping down like this, just literally melting. And especially there's one thing that really bugs me because, as you know, and you even wrote the book about the myths of the property investment. There is so many scams in that area. Yeah, when
Yeah.
old saying, "Fool and money need to part away." So inexperienced person going to chase the dream of getting rich quick or making millions in property is being drawn by the sharks and is being fleeced of that money. And all those schemes, they are very elaborated. They are multifaceted. They can involve, I don't know, nuances of law, planning. There's so many levels of that if you're not experienced and you didn't spend years in property, you can be taken by surprise with the. But newbies, they don't know what can hit them. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And those people, so now we're talking about people who discussed really complicated, I would say, scams. They can't see through lack of logic in this, yeah? So they can count something, they can check situation which really requires specialist knowledge and there's many
Yeah.
nuisances and it's multifaceted. They can see through that, but they can't ask simple question for the very simple thing, like why this bloke is going between all rooms.
Hmm.
Is he quarantining after he's in
No.
contact with you? And all these things, like, but what I found was complete silence from like people in the in a business, yeah, where most of them they blow their trumpet that they are leaders, self-proclaimed, I would say in that regard, is they offer training, they blow their trumpet that they are specialists, that they are leaders, but they can't take that stance like you did, yeah, like
Yeah.
just to say no, that's not acceptable for whatever, just basic decency. That's not right. Yeah, just
Yeah.
speak up and say something. Not accept the bullying. But that was thing that actually amazed me. That the people they get along with all this
Yeah.
without asking question, saying no, and just taking action. Because end of the day, it's just like, even if you would just repeat, I will repeat myself, but just from point of business, yeah, you've just lost 10 days.
Hmm.
So forget maybe your personal situation because you're kind of person who is in business already, so you got this resilience in you. But then I can imagine that for person who is less developed than you, that would be so much bigger distress for them.
Yeah, like the lady next door. I mean, this morning she was screaming, she was kicking, because the same guy who spoke to me, like you saw him speaking to me, was speaking to her next door. Because she was asking questions. Well, why can't I go? Because she probably just thought it was a hotel, where she has to stay for a while. She didn't realize she's going to have to be kept in a room and only released for 15 minutes a day. So she couldn't cope with it, and I think she's trying to cope with it now. But I don't know what it's doing to her head. For me, for me, I just kind of laugh about it in a way. And I know people say you should just leave, you should just leave. But I have as my daughter's wedding celebration for the first year, which is like a few days after when I should leave. So I don't want to be at the wedding celebration and police coming up saying we need to take you back to the prison hotel. I just don't want the hassle. So I'll just play by the rules, you know, kind of just take it in a, well, let people know what's happening, which is what I'm doing. Uh,
Hmm.
so that's external. Internally, just treat it with, we say, a pinch of salt, you know. But then afterwards, if there's a way to get back at the situation, then take action, legal action or whatever, because I've got enough evidence about the way things have been conducted. But unfortunately, at the moment, it seems to be supported by government rules. Well, whether those rules are lawful is the question. So if they're found to be unlawful, then there's a basis for claiming for sure. For like you say, my time's valuable, so it's costing money. It's costing me money, and it's just wasting taxpayers' money as well. Because while we have to pay £1,750, I don't know. I think my sister, she said she's into travel. She said something like 64 million has been given to a private company to set all this up. So if that's
For 64 million, they could lease the whole
yeah,
apartment and provide you free accommodation.
you would have thought so. Yeah, but no, they're
Yeah.
just throwing money away. They're giving it. They're giving. I don't know if they've got connections there where they're giving it to, but there's a lot of money just flowing out, and it's ending up in somebody's pocket. But it's flowing out from the taxpayer's pocket.
You see, we are at 20 past 2 in the morning, but that's UK time. You're going through time zone change, so you still need to adjust. And I'm just a type of person. I tend to sit to wait when I'm out work, but I told you that there will be many people watching, so we got people from Australia watching us. So we still got 25 people watching live at this minute, and there will be many more catching up. But I didn't want to schedule this, but uh, I can see now comment from person from Natasha from Australia. So 14 days quarantine in Australia, 10 in UK, 7 in Israel, and who knows about other countries. Where is evidence? Like, how come the same? say, bug can wait 7 days in one country, and then 14 days. It's so unscientifical, so against the logic, against the evidence, against the irrationality. Because if you will conduct yourself on in your business like this, you will face all the consequences. There will be accountability if you make mistakes. The same like we're in property, yes? So we're
Yep.
responsible for condition that people live in.
Yep.
And if we don't comply and we put people in danger by our, say, negligence, then we can face all sorts of consequences. But then I would say that this is clear negligence from the government to organize such a circus, but there seems to be no consequences for them.
No.
And that's why there's need for action from people like yourself to first make this to did you try to contact media? You said there was no.
Yeah, I started trying to contact the media when I was stuck for 5 days in Charles de Gaulle Airport because I thought it was quite ridiculous. And the fact was, the reason I was there is because the government didn't supply enough hotels to implement their policy. So I thought that was a newsworthy story, but just total silence. Nobody. I mean, I went through the agencies. I went to the Daily Mail. No answer from the Daily Mail. Still no answer from the Daily Mail. And I went to. There's all these other agencies they'll take your story to various media. So I went through them. I got a reply from one which said, "Oh, we've carefully considered your story, but we don't think it's newsworthy. Sorry." I mean, that's the standard answer anyway. It was just a standard email.
Mhm.
The rest I got no reply. So nobody was interested. Okay, when I got here, I thought I'll just use social media because I thought the media is not interested in. I mean, to me, the fact that I got stuck in an international airport for 5 days is a bigger problem than me being in this hotel prison, or they're equally as bad, let's say, but nobody was really interested in that. Nobody's interested in the fact that the government implement policies and procedures without the resources to carry them through effectively. And then when you find yourself suffering in that situation, they just say it's your fault. You should read the website. That to me was the craziest thing. So the media weren't interested in that. And yeah, so far I've heard people are interested. I've sent them some information, but I've heard nothing back. So
That's not good enough. So say like when we're renting houses, we got procedure to follow, and there is guidance that is updated. Let's say how to rent booklet, which
yeah,
basically that's the government document that specify what is needed in order to legally rent the house out, and it specify all the criteria. And then we have to follow up like on illegal updates, but they are announced in like
yeah,
at
they're enough.
least, yes, they are announced in some sort of timely manner. And when they say there will be change needed, let's say from now on you have to test electricity in the house before you will rent it out. Well, it wasn't the case in the past, but there was announcement of whatever year or two, and we
Yeah,
knew it's coming, and we could adjust this. It was logical. We had time to accommodate this, and there is a structure in place to follow. But all this is just like completely so hectic, completely, first of all, irrational, and it's just like, again, in contradicting to the law itself.
yeah. In fact, I feel personally as though I've been put at greater risk by being sent here. If there is such a thing, then I feel I've been put at greater risk being sent here than being sent home. Because all they've done is they've grouped me with other people they're classing a higher risk, And then they've got like Mr. Super Spreader that we saw on the video that you say didn't wear his mask correctly. So we've got people that don't know how to follow the rules they're trying to make us follow to start with, and then they're spreading it. They're going outside and bringing it here. So in fact, I'm surrounded by more people here than I would be if I'd have gone home. I would only have, let's say, my bubble, yeah, just my bubble that I would be with. Not all these people. I don't know where they've been, what they're doing. So they put me. Okay, they say they're protecting society, but they're also putting me at greater risk. If that's the case, by what they're doing, they put us, like I said before, they put us all on the same bus. So everybody that's here, new people coming in, has been mixing with other people. Can you believe that? So imagine how many people, if you put us all together and you said, well, you've been in contact with that person who's been in contact with that person who's been in contact with that. So if you look at it that way, like this, pingdemic, whatever situation where you've been in contact with people who's been in contact with people, look at where we are, all getting on the common bus, but going to different hotels. So it's not like it's one common bus coming to the same hotel. It's one common bus transporting to different hotels, dropping people off at different places. So they're just mixing everybody together. It's incompetence.
Unbelievable.
I mean, why would you do that? I've been put at risk because of that. If that's
genuinely the case that there's thing that can be spreaded, then yes, you are now at the shooting range as a target.
Yeah, because of the way they're distributing people when they get to the airport, putting everybody on the same bus to go to different hotels.
I got another clip which I want to play, and maybe there will be, maybe another video will upload. Just let me try. So that exchange will be from that's from your camera, where you wanted to see me from inside of the parking lot.
Yeah.
And that's again Mr. Super Spreader intervening, called by, we call them Green Vest, the security. So I'm gonna load this now.
Oh, it's you again.
It's me again, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, come with me and we'll have a
Who
chat.
are you?
Come with me, I'm the liaison officer. Come and have a word
No,
with
I'm
me.
not going anywhere.
Why?
I've come out for fresh air. I've just signed.
Yeah, we'll come over here and have fresh air.
And this is a colleague that I know.
This is very aggressive.
It's not aggressive.
That's not aggressive.
It's not aggressive.
It's very aggressive.
Look, my friend doesn't think it's aggressive when I'm around him. It depends what side
Come on,
you're on.
come and
I'm
have a
not
word.
going anywhere.
Why? So you're
Because
going
I have
so
a
you're
right to be
disobeying.
here. I have a right to be here.
You don't. In a minute, right? When we're talking about rights, I'm going to stop your exercise if you don't behave yourself.
You're going to stop my exercise,
Yes.
my right to exercise?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
This has gone beyond a joke.
Yeah. So bring it. Keep
Sorry?
bringing it on. I'm not speaking to you. Keep bringing it on. Yeah. Over there, please.
No, I'm not moving anywhere. No.
Can we call the police and we'll get these guys removed? Yeah, please.
Why are you calling the police?
Because
I
it's my
came to
right to
talk
call
to
the police
somebody.
because
You're
you're
right.
disobeying the rules.
I've come to see somebody here.
No, you can't. So this is an illegal
ridiculous.
meeting.
It's illegal
If you move
meeting.
back inside, and then
Unbelievable, like the attitude, and it's just there's no need to comment on that, but this is something that people really need to see. And I will link, because I don't want to play the whole hour of a live stream I did outside. I will just link this so people can understand the how it looks like from externally, how the hotel looks like, and the reaction of the security, how they were towards me as well. And again, they shouldn't even be in contact with me if we're saying that there is that thing that they can spread. Yeah, they shouldn't be leaving facility themselves because I didn't enter facility. Oh, just a second. I need to unmute you.
Yeah, I was saying, so they did actually bring the police up to my room after that.
I was waiting there, but again, the rain was so heavy. I waited, and I just couldn't bear the rain anymore. And I've been there actually for a while, and they fetched ambulance, but it wasn't the police.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what was the reason why the ambulance went in. But then again, if you think, what's the logic of that? So now you've got ambulance staff going to, say, called red spot, yeah, where they can catch something and bring it to their hospital,
Mm-hmm.
where they can actually infect vulnerable people. Again, another illogical action to me, because if I would be running quarantaine, say, facility, I would have doctor in place for people who are there, and I wouldn't be mixing stuff from hospital because that's the very last thing where you want to drag the cat.
Let's say if it is really so serious, how would you most sensibly deal with this? I've come from a dangerous country, allegedly. Okay, so how would you deal with it? What would be the best way? The best way would be there's a taxi or some vehicle that's designed for transporting me potentially very dangerous to the country to go straight home because I'm a national. I belong here. I have somewhere to go. I'm not just a visitor. I have somewhere to go. I have a home. So they take me straight home. They tag me. So I'm not just relying on calling to check that I'm at home. They put a tag on me and they bring food for me, because I live alone anyway. So, okay, maybe somebody, I can get somebody, but they should say, well, arrange to bring you food if you need it as an option, but you must stay in there and you must take these tests. That would be much cheaper. That would be much safer for everybody, me included, because I'm not mixing with other alleged dangerous country people. That would be the way to manage it. Put yourself in your own isolation, tag to make sure you're not going to move from there. Food's brought to where you are. You can live at home. You're not cooped up in some hotel room which actually has the window screwed shut and the door, the window opener removed. That's what I've got here. I've got a screw in the window. The window opener's removed. And I'm actually trying to just pull the window open a little bit at the top to get some air in. So, it's like it's just a prison cell without ventilation. Although there's an air vent pumping something into the room, but I don't know what it's pumping in. So, so the best way would be you collected at the airport, you're taken by taxi, a COVID taxi, whatever, go home, tagged, you left there 10 days, you do the test, that's going to be much cheaper and it's going to be much more effective. That's simple. There's nothing. Why is there a need for hotels? Well, the only answer is it's just, I don't know if they're making money out of this, but it's a money spinner for somebody. Maybe it's just employing people to do something to treat to, I don't know. That's the only thing that makes sense, that it's just, even though the government are paying money, maybe it's putting money back into the economy. It's only a financial justification, but it's increasing. If there is a risk, it's only increasing the risk of the problem, not decreasing it, because of the reasons I've said, how they're managing it by putting us all on the same bus and sending us all to different hotels. That is like, if I was designing this, I would be ashamed to think that if I've designed this system with the objective of reducing the risk of any dangerous transmissions, then I would be very ashamed. Because the simple thing is just take home, tag you, stay there, done. Nobody's suffering. Nobody's getting treated like that liaison officer's treating everybody, going around with his mask down, spreading COVID, as he says. That's where he says you're spreading COVID. He's telling me I'm spreading COVID. If on that first video, if you look on the first video, it says because you're spreading COVID, and he's got his mask down because you're spreading COVID, and you go.
And he was so agitated that nearly, looked like he will spit in your face.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So he's the one that's spreading, quite obviously. If it's doing anything any good, he's spreading. That's all he's good at.
I was reading through comments in the meantime, and there's one I need to read. It's just unbelievable. So it's long, so it won't show the whole on the screen. So it says it's ridiculous. We were all on the plane together, at the airport together, on the bus together, mixing with hundreds of people on the airport, police, army, and hotel staff who all think they're safe because they are wearing a mask, which medically and scientifically is proven to not to stop said thing. So anyone with a half a brain cells knows that this vicious bug is far smarter than the holes in the mask, etc. Yet then hundreds of staffs are mixing with thousands of people, and they all go home every day via shops. They pick up kids from school, etc. There's no logic, evidence, intelligence in any of this. It's just a complete joke. I can't agree. I mean, I can't disagree with this. Zav, if I would run quarantine facility, like you said, even if you would stay at home, that's one option. But then quarantine means quarantine, so people are in an enclosed environment when they're not mixing and in contact with anybody. So say the delivery driver who were showing up every 7 minutes after reaching the guys in green vest who are freely circling around all the hotel, and possibly they could be another super spreaders, and they are picking food from delivery drivers, yeah, which delivery drivers now they go and deliver food elsewhere to anybody.
Yeah. So if it was quarantine, they shouldn't be allowed to deliver things. So, but then they wouldn't need to deliver food if they gave us decent food. The reason you saw so many delivery vans is because the food's worse than prison food.
Unbelievable. I just got another comment is you would be treated better if you would let them arrest you and take you to cell. You would get air and food, and you will only be locked for a few hours, and you still don't have to pay fine or sign anything because there is no legal ground for this. This will be thrown out in court if that will come to this. So there were fines for people who organize a protest. That's what government announced. Another government rule of £10,000 for a person who is organizing the gathering of more than whatever it was allowed at the time, and especially if you organize a protest, it was a £10,000 fixed notice if they would recognize you as an organizer. And all those cases, they were thrown out of court because they just contradict the existing law. There was few other comments. One is about RT, which seems to be more balanced as a news provider. They tend to cover protests. They're not that biased. They're showing news and they don't exclude things. While you were away, I just need to tell you there was a big protest in London, which you haven't heard of, and there was 1.5 million people attending, and you haven't heard of this. So you would expect something like this to be reported in BBC for which people they pay money to be public subsidized reliable news agent, yeah. And it wasn't one single off protest. They grew up. Protests grew up. In March, there was protest. Around 80 to 100,000 people turned in. Then in April, between 500,000 to 750,000. May, that was million. And June, it peaked over 1.5 million. So, and none of this was reported in mainstream media. And why is that happening? It's obviously people are saying no because that's their only way, kind of, to is to go to protest because writing to MPs, reporting this to police, it just doesn't get them anywhere. And that's the story of your story. It's just like one of the 1,000 other pieces of the whole um, drama, yeah, that people are facing now. Like how many lives are affected by this irresponsible way of acting, yeah, by the government of those rules. Another suggestion, because we've got a few more independent news providers. They're quite niche. One of them is UK Column, which really go in depth when they analyze the news. They report the news with proper journalist ethic. So they research the subject before they announce this in their program. They do research. They give the source of the information, which you can't find in mainstream media nowadays. They should explain why they're reporting something. Yes, they shouldn't be just a propaganda machine. You would expect that from journalists to provide the evidence of his statement, unless this is just an opinion-based article. But if this is factual article, then it should be references, right? And there is a newspaper called Light Paper, and I saw that redactor of that newspaper was tagged here. So we will contact them. So UK Column, RT, Light Paper. It's really worth to take this further, so more people can see, more people will be encouraged to say no or to take action against them.
Yeah.
Other question that occurred a few times, people were asking, do you have 3 meals a day? How does this work?
Yeah, there's three meals a day. They knock on the door, and then you open the door, and there's a bag there. So you have a breakfast, and like I tick the hot breakfast option. My first breakfast, I think you put it on there on the pictures, was a sausage roll and some tomato sauce sachet. I think the sausage roll was a little bit bigger than the tomato sauce sachet, so that was the hot option. So I thought, oh, I'm going to get in an English breakfast or something. Not really. And then at lunchtime you get a sandwich, a packet of crisps, a drink, and you saw it, Radik. You used to get like a chocolate bar. Well, that's stopped in the last few days. So you get a sandwich, some crisps, and a drink. The funny thing was, I'd ordered the salmon sandwich, and I looked at the sandwich packet, and it looked okay. It looks like a salmon sandwich. When I opened the sandwich up, the salmon was only spread along the edge that you can see. So if you know, like you've got those triangular packets, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, wow, this is a salmon sandwich. when I opened it, it was just, it's like, if you can imagine when they're doing that, if you put the salmon right in the middle and you have a square and then you cut diagonally, then when you put the pieces together, it looks like it's full of salmon. It was just one little bit, and then the rest was like lettuce. So that was a bit of a joke. But then sometimes you do get a reasonable meal, hot meal, but mostly they're microwave meals. They're just like, it's just a microwave meal. £1.50
Again,
or something.
again, they should saying about customer service, but then they should also consider, you might be whatever diabetic, you might have underlying condition, you might have dietary
Well,
requirements.
you
Did
can,
they even ask you about any of that?
yeah. You can tick a box. Do you say you've got a certain requirement? I don't, but you can tick a box. And there was a couple in the car park I met on the first day, and they said they ticked special dietary requirements, and they were just getting standard what everybody else was getting. So whether that gets implemented is a different thing. I can't say, but second-hand information, they said they were not getting the special dietary requirement that they had indicated. So whether that was a one-off mistake, I don't know, but that's just one couple. So maybe, but yeah, they're supposed to do that.
You're in hotel room, but I'm guessing there is no regular service like changing the bedding or towels.
No. Well, no, and the reason is they say they use COVID as the reason, but the real reason is do it as cheaply as possible, and so, okay, they say look after your own room, you got to keep it clean, etc., etc. That's fair enough, but there's no Hoover, there's not even a dustpan and brush. So
Hmm.
they say, and all they give you is, well, they don't give you plates, they just give you a bowl like a prisoner would have. So we just
Oh,
get a bowl. Yeah, we get a bowl, and some knives. Yeah. So that's basically what you're eating out of. Everything is, that's it, a bowl, no plates. So you just get a bowl, and then they give you some washing up liquid so you can, and a scouring pad. So washing up liquid and a cleaning pad. But there's nothing for the room to keep the room clean. There's no, if you get crumbs on the floor, you have to pick them up by hand. There's no brush, no dustpan and brush.
shocking. What about towels or like the
Yeah, towels.
laundry?
Towels are okay. Laundry, apparently, you can ask them to do the laundry for you. I'm just washing my own clothes in the sink, so I haven't used that. I just wash every. I've got rotation going of just. I didn't bring many clothes with me because I didn't think it was going to be a long journey back. So I didn't take much. I didn't bring. In fact, I bought quite a lot of stuff in Costa Rica, but I didn't bring it. I used my case for the printer because I needed the printer for the business, even though the printer didn't work when I got here. So I sacrificed the clothes for having something to do some business with while I'm in the hotel room. So I haven't got many clothes anyway, but I just frequently wash them just by hand. But yeah, apparently it does say you can use the laundry service. Well, of course, because it'll be another money-making thing. Yeah. So if it's money-making, yes, you can do it. If it's money-saving, then they'll save it and they'll use COVID as an excuse. Like keep your own room clean, but they don't even supply you with stuff to keep it clean. So it's hypocritical again. But the only common theme is it's making the maximum amount of money. So they're doing the minimum, but they're extracting the maximum profit. So the only logic behind the buses is it's cheaper to put people on the same bus and let somebody go around London for 6 hours. In fact, when we were on the bus and I was on for 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours, I didn't time exactly, but somebody told me it was 6. I definitely knew it was over 5 because I remember roughly the time getting on the bus. But somebody said it was 6 hours to get there. And this guy is going around London And apparently, we already passed this hotel in the middle of the afternoon. Somebody who knew London and was on the same bus as me going to this hotel said, "Well, look, we've already passed the hotel. We were in like a few streets away." But all they were doing was just going down the list, putting the next postcode in, putting the next postcode in, but there was no order to say take the fastest route to all the hotels. So we were just going from one end of London to the other end, and then they get the next postcode on the list, and oh, it's next to that hotel we've just been to. So you kept seeing the same streets. So it was a joke. It didn't need to take 6 hours. It just needed a route planner. But they don't have a route planner. They just take the postcode and put in one after the other after the other. And if it takes you from one end to the other side, to the bottom, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point is, we were on that bus and they never offered us any water. No refreshments, 6 hours. There was a toilet on the bus, which I eventually found. They didn't tell us there was a toilet on the bus. It's really poorly organized. They just basically throw you on a bus, ask you your postcode. So they don't even have a list of where people are going. They come and ask you, where are you going? What postcode? And so you have to show them on your phone the hotel you've booked. So that's how poorly it's organized.
There was a question coming up a few times, um, which I think I will add some comment to this. Um, you see, people who are following my profile, um, there's so many activists and people who are very actively against what is happening. So they're very vocal about this. And they're free thinking people who just question what is going on. Basically, because we've been involved in protest, we've been involved in a situation where we were harassed or bullied by the police, by the so-called government rules and um, oppression around this. Yeah, we are kind of very vocal, and we also stand our ground. Yeah, so many people that were facing arrest or bullying on the protest, and they were just refusing cooperation because, like, even let's say for police to arrest you, they should have reason, and they couldn't even quote the actual law when they were stopping people at the protest. So mostly they were just attacking people, or they were stopping them unlawfully because they can detain anybody up to 24 hours without giving proper reason. But from that, and that's why this question keeps repeating itself, because people, they just like they're in this mode of standing up. Yeah, so that's why the question was. But I think it's like you're just very cultural person. You're very mannered person. You're a businessman. You're calm. I mean, you got the adequate emotional intelligence to handle the stress situation, and you're just being polite, like you said. You don't want to cause trouble because for whatever it is worth, and then you've got another thing. So you're just waiting the cost of this particular inconvenience at this very moment because you know that there will be your daughter wedding, and if you kick off now, there will be series of other consequences. Like not
Yeah.
many people actually can see the perspective. Like they don't have this, they didn't develop this ability. If you understand me,
Mm-hmm.
like most people, they just react to situation. You can process the information. Like this is what is happening now. What can I do? But you're not in this irrational state when you're just angry or you're just kicking off, or like you said, you're crying or shouting like people next door.
Yeah.
But you're waiting the consequences. What if I will do this? If I will come out, what will happen? Yeah, so you're waiting this. So I think this is a combination. So sorry that I just kind of explained the background from other end why people are asking, because that's what they would think. If they would be
Yeah.
approached and they would be stopped, they would say, "You got no right to do this. What's the legal base for you to do?" And they will question that, yeah? And even if they will be stopped and this will progress, say police arresting them, they will be looking to put a complaint, to sue them or whatever, because they are there to make a stance, yeah? So if I can have your comment on that.
I think you've covered it there. I'm not one for complying, which is why I've put the information out. However, I have to weigh things up, and the reason for coming back from Costa Rica is to get to my daughter's first wedding celebration. I'm only just within a few days of reaching that now because I had the delay in Charles de Gaulle. And if I put up some resistance and say if they did have the power to take me from home and bring me back, then I miss it. So what's the point? What's the point? So I might as well just hope I get out because I get a negative test. Let's hope super spreader didn't give me anything when he was spreading on me. So if super spreader hasn't given me anything, like even if it's not, the alleged disease, even if it's a cold and they detect that as a problem, I don't know. So he may have given me something that may give me a positive test. I don't know. But say if he hasn't and I get out, then I get home just in time, and then I don't get any more hassle. However, I expect that at the end of this, there will be some cases that will be brought against the government or whoever by some smart lawyers that say exactly what you're saying, and that'll be our day. That'll be how we'll get justice. So rather than, let's say, take justice into my own hands, I would rather it go through the legal channels and get justice. But for sure there should be compensation. For sure I'm losing a lot of time here. I have thought ahead, and I did try to bring a printer with me. When that failed, I ordered one on Amazon or eBay. So eBay, I got a printer delivered here. So, I can carry on doing something, but I can't do the things that I want to do. I have to do what you do when you just sat down in your office, which is restrictive. But then I have the phone. The hotel Wi-Fi is bad, but fortunately I have good signal on the phone. So yeah, so that's the reason I'm not walking out. And you saw as well, Radik. Okay, maybe they can't physically stop you, but they can call the police. What do they do? What did they do when they couldn't? What did they do when I didn't comply? They called the police. And what did the police do? They came into my room and they said, "We've seen CCTV camera. You're not obeying." And they started threatening, pressing charges. Not as though it bothered me, but that's what they did. So what would happen if I went home? Okay.
200 is much cheaper than 1,750.
No, it's 10,000 then. I think the fine's 10,000.
Oh, yes, and then possibility of being. I wish to see this because this is against the human rights and so many acts of law. It's just made up, Even the page I screenshot, I couldn't show the screen here, but I'm gonna do separate post. It has typos in, It's not even properly printed out. You know what I mean? It's just so wrong.
And what does it say at the top of it? Ministry for Quarantine. I've never even heard of them. But there's a Ministry for Quarantine or something. It says, I can't remember.
The important question come out on feed, and we were discussing this as well. There is this situation with alleged bug. I mean, with the crisis of caused by this bug. It's not the same in different countries. So the question was, what is the situation in Costa Rica? So I was actually asking you, have you seen any people sick with this famous disease, sick of it, or
no? In fact, I was staying in a place called Quepos, Queupos, for quite a while, near Quepos anyway, and we asked there, and there was a few cases in Quepos, but nothing much. So it depends where you are. If you're in San Jose, maybe there's, I'm talking about cases that allegedly been tested positive. So there was only a few, even though it's a red country, there's only a few cases that were positive in Quepos. However, the requirements are that you wear a mask everywhere you go, you wash your hands before you go into any shops, and sometimes you have to stand on a mat of alcohol before you go into a shop. So there's usually those three requirements, and everybody does that. And then some days, if the government, they say that the cases are going up, they restrict the amount of people that are out and about by saying, depending what registration plate, what number it ends in, because they end in a number. So depending what the number is on the end of the registration plate means you can be on the road that day or not. And so they regulate the amount of people that's able to move around. They're not restricting where you go, but they're restricting how many people travel. So that's how it's being controlled. But Easter weekend, that's when the COVID cases increased in Costa Rica, because everybody goes to the beaches and they just party. And there's a lot of people that don't have a lot of money in Costa Rica. So what do? They get on buses. So they hire all the school buses and they go to the beach in school buses. So a lot of the poorer people, they all mix on buses to get there. Obviously, people that's got a bit more money, they travel by car. But you see a lot of people mixing on the bus, they mix on the beach. So after Easter, the cases just jumped, allegedly, quite high. And then it started to continue to climb, and steadily, just never really came down from that. And that's when at a certain stage, Costa Rica was classed as a red country simply because of the number. Well, it went to amber, first of all. It went to amber, and then it went to red. And that was about 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago, it went to red. And it's not come down since. But it all was triggered by the Easter, I think it was Easter, I'm pretty sure it was Easter celebration. One of the celebrations anyway. That everybody goes to the beach and yeah. However, it's starting to come down now, apparently. I don't know the exact stats, but I know it depends where you live. Where I was living in Costa Rica, there wasn't a lot of positive cases, just a handful.
So now we're talking about cases and we're talking about checking and testing. It's
because I don't know anybody. I don't know of anybody in a hospital, is what you were asking me, and the answer to that is no, I don't.
but let's say messages. So you've been there for 10 months. What was the messaging? Were you able to follow this, or is this language barrier to read their announcement? Because you knew about cases clearly,
Yeah.
but on other side of cases, so what is case? Case is the result of the test, but then
Yeah.
I think this is not rational to count the cases where we should be counting the actual sick people or people who are dying from this. So like the case, say same like just finding the traces. That's what the test does. Finding the trace of something in you, which is triggering the test, doesn't mean that you're sick. That's a big controversy about the test and the amount of cycles they do in this polymerase chain reaction test, this PCR test. It's just giving awful lot of false positive, and clearly you can see correlation. Like in UK, amount of cases dropped. Why? Because now we got summer recess, so kids, they're not testing kids, so the amount of cases is going down. What it got to do with actual virology and amount of so-called sick people who should be going to hospital? If we would really stick to the narrative of the deadly disease flying in the air, circulating, infecting people, and making them ill, sick, and dying. So that's maybe that's a question. What was the 10 months like? Because in UK, you've been in Costa Rica 10 months, but you remember the beginning propaganda in UK intensity. How can you compare them to?
Well, I mean, like you say, a lot of it's in Spanish. I pick up some things, and I know American people over there, and obviously we're talking English, so I'm not really picking up everything because I'm not able to understand the Spanish. I can pick up some things, but I don't speak Spanish. I can hear certain things. I can understand certain things now, but I'm not able to really take everything in. But it's not a big thing over there. It's just like you just get on with life. You just wear a mask, wash your hands, stand on an alcohol mat whenever you go in a place. That's it. And life goes on. And I think I said before we went on air, I was saying that in Costa Rica, it's like if you don't work, you don't eat. There's no state support, nothing. And so people have to work. And there was a time when they locked the whole country down. And in Costa Rica, if they disagree with something, they just drive onto the roads and block the roads. So if the government does anything crazy, the people do vote with their feet and they go out and block the main roads for a day or whatever until the government decide, okay, we don't do that because we understand what you're saying. So basically, they'll shut the country down if the government do anything crazy. So that keeps the government from making crazy decisions. They have to think before they do it. What will the people react like? And then at the same time, they have to take some action to combat whatever's perceived to be happening. So I think they just take careful steps. But I was in, I had a medical condition, so I was going in and out of hospital, but I didn't notice any real problems there. I mean, I heard that they were struggling with beds, but they won't have that many beds. So I can't remember the number of cases, but I didn't witness anything. You don't see it on the news. You don't see pictures of hospitals and situations on the news there. Not like we saw in the UK when it was allegedly quite bad. You don't see anything like that in Costa Rica, not that I saw. So they just live in a different way. But then it's got classed as a red country. Well, people from America are allowed to go to Costa Rica, no problem. So America allows people to go to Costa Rica, no problem. But America's saying, don't come to the UK. So what does that tell you? So it tells you that the UK by America is perceived to be a worse risk than the red country I've come to, but the UK doesn't seem to be red listed. Why? That doesn't add up either.
No. And especially if you think like, again, political decision is like, it's hard to comment on that, but there's supposed to be tightening of the relation after Brexit with United States. Why would they do that? And we saw this in UK, like it was clearly preference which countries they were putting on the so-called red list. And let's say they didn't put India for a time when they were negotiating trade deal. And if you would say take some measurements like the amount of cases or the growth in cases or whatever the metrics you use, it wasn't based on metric. It was just based on the fact that politicians were actually negotiating the deal with India.
Yep. So I don't know, what happened with Costa Rica. Why? I thought the UK is supposed to have a good relationship with Costa Rica. And I was very surprised when it went red because it had been amber for a while and there wasn't really any change in cases. It wasn't suddenly like the country's saying, okay, things are going crazy, things are out of control, and then we went red. No, it was amber and then it just went red. But there was nothing happening in the country any worse than it was when it was amber. And so I was quite shocked to see it's gone to red. And then I thought, well, surely it's going to come from red back to amber because there's no big problem here. There's no big problem. And it didn't. It just stayed at red. So that's when I had to decide, okay, it's not going to change from amber. It's not going to change from red in time for me to get back for my daughter's party. So I'm going to have to go, and I'm just going to have to face 10 days in a hotel, not realizing I'm going to be stuck 5 days in an airport because the UK didn't have enough rooms for its policy. So, so I thought I'm going to get back in time to help her prepare with everything. And now I'm if I don't get out in time, if I have a test that's inconclusive, for example, if they test me and it's inconclusive, I then have to have another test. So that will delay another few days. So then I might not even get back after all this. And you would have thought that 20 days was enough to get home in total.
Or even 10 days for so-called bug to incubate and to actually show the symptoms. Because how long can you stay there? 20 days, 30 days? Will it come out in 6 months' time? Again, there's no logic in this. No. There was an interesting comment because we were having this battle of variants, because UK government used to use term Indian variants, on which Indian officials, they say there's no such thing as Indian variant because World Health Organization did not recognize such variant. So that was completely made up in the press. So it could be as well that, let's say, they would announce Costa Rican variant. Because now we've got Peter from Barnsley fetching it here. Yes, and now we will have, let's say, outbreak in Barnsley, and they will say now the whole country, the whole civilization is at risk of Costa Rican variant, which you've just brought in.
which I got from the super spreader.
Yes. No, you fetched the Costa Rican, so he could have whatever Mozambique variant, whatever the people came from.
Yeah, but if I do have something, they're not going to blame it on the super spreader. They're going to blame it on me coming from Costa Rica. They're not going to blame it on the fact that they put us on all the same. They put us all on the same bus on arrival at Heathrow. They're not going to blame it on that. They're going to say, well, I brought it from Costa Rica. That's not correct because I've already been, like I said, 10 days clear without anything. So if I get anything now, I've caught it in transit and quite probably here.
That's important thing, and it's important to point this out and to document this because that's just fact. Yeah, that 10 days have passed and you had 3 tests. That's just evidence.
Yeah. It's evidence that I definitely didn't bring anything from Costa Rica because they say in 10 days, if they're to be believed, in 10 days, it should have evidenced itself. Well, the last test I took, if I had something, so I was clear in Costa Rica on the first test. So then 5 days later, I have another test. I was clear. Then 3 days later, I have another test and I'm still clear. So, and that's what they do here. It's like it's on the 8th day. So I was tested in here on the 8th day of me being away from Costa Rica. Like if I arrive here, they test me on day 2 and they test me on day 8. And if I'm clear on both of those, then I can go. So it's the same thing. I've just tested clear, but the first test on day 2 was my 8th day of travel. So that means I haven't brought anything from Costa Rica. So if I do have anything on my next test, it's super spreader or something else from somebody from the bus that's given me something. And that brings me back to my point that by going through this procedure, if there is anything, I've put myself at more risk going through this procedure than if I just went straight home and stayed at home. Would have been safer for me, would have been safer for everybody. But I'm, up and as far as bringing something from Costa Rica, I don't.
So we
As-
don't see that's like actual. It's like I don't know a single person who was sick or died, and I've been 18 months. Sorry, since May last year. Um, it's not. I'm just mixing the months up, but yeah, the way I started properly questioning it, and I went to first protest. It was in May last year. So now we've got what? We've got now end of July. So that's 12, that's um, 14 months for me. Yes. And I've been out and about in many countries. I come across I mix with at least 3 million people. There's another thing is like, because there are differences in culture. So I'll say, I had this when I came to England, actually. That was in long time ago. I just realized that people, they got different habits. So like in my culture, it's very common that this is just a normal thing that people will come to you and they will shake your hands. While in England, it's not that common. So certain people will do that, but some people will avoid that contact, or they won't even say hello or good morning. It depends on their, I would say, manners or education level. But like now, we're seeing this. It's different for different countries. So like, what are people in Costa Rica over those 10 months? Were they scared? Because here in UK, the people were really, the government scared the living daylight out of people, and they are really afraid of each other. Can you say that, or what can you say about interaction between people in Costa Rica?
In Costa Rica, they just do the fist. So they
They
don't
do
they don't shake hands. They just like this.
because of this situation.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what it was like before because I'd never been before. Well, I did actually. I've been once before, but I didn't I didn't really notice anything then. But no, now they just touch knuckles and yeah. I was going to say do most things what they do in the UK, but I've been over there that long that I've kind of forgot what we do here. But over there, they'll just greet each other with a fist, and yeah, we don't shake hands. Yeah, it's just the fist, and then they wear the mask, they wash their hands, and they stand on alcohol, and they limit the amount of cars on the road. They are the measures that's being taken.
Are people abusive towards each other or aggressive? Is
No,
somebody trying to challenge, let's say, mask wearing? What you say? Everybody wears the mask, or there are people who
yeah,
actually
no,
try to challenge this?
no. The only people that don't wear masks is like the people at the street people who live on the street, and you get a lot of people in Costa because there's no social security there. Some people just have to beg. So a lot of people, what they do if they don't have money, they'll put on a vest like we see these guys. They'll put on a vest and they'll just walk at the side of the road and they'll look after your car. Look after your car. So you just slip them some money before you go. But those people will wear masks. Generally, those people will wear masks. The people that don't wear masks are the people that don't even look after your car. They just come up and ask for money, or yeah, normally they're just going around with a little like a beggar, just with a cup, and they might not wear a mask, but everybody else wears a mask. When you're in a town or a city, obviously, if you say obviously, but if you're in the countryside, like say if I'm walking through a rainforest, I'm not wearing a mask walking through a rainforest. I mean, no. If I'm walking through a town, yes, I'm expected to wear a mask. So it depends where I am. If I'm on the beach, no. you don't wear them on the beach. Generally, people are separated, and people don't wear masks on the beach when they're not too busy. I didn't see anybody wearing masks on the beach, but in towns, people wear masks.
Yeah,
In
there is
yeah,
famous show on ITV, breakfast show, and there was a guy called Dr. Hillary who was advising people to wear the mask when they're swimming. And after that, he happily went without a mask on the Wimbledon, partying with 60,000 fans. And that's about advice from television, mainstream media. Um, I'm reflecting on one thing that you say. Seems to be the key to all this. Because in countries like Costa Rica, when, like you said, if you don't work, you don't eat. There is no incentive to play the game.
no,
While here, like you said, every penny that could be saved will be saved, or if they can make something extra on top, they will milk you on top because there is tangible incentive for them to act that way.
yeah,
Money trail, benefit, like food chain. You can see the food chain. You can see the motives.
yeah, yeah. The only chain of logic in my experience is profiteering. That's the only chain of logic I see. There's no chain of logic of health. No, there's just no logic there. But there is a logic to do with providing a so-called service and maximizing the profit by minimizing the costs, by giving cheap meals, by saying clean your own room, by putting you all on the same bus. They're the common things.
Hmm.
Nothing to do with, if it was all about health, then like we've said before, you'd have your own taxi. Um, you would have something to clean. Although cleaning the room is probably not, it's not probably COVID related. It's just general hygiene. But you would expect they would give you something to keep the room clean. And yeah, but and the whole thing about the staff going home. Surely they should stay here.
Yes, they
This,
should
yeah,
stay for a period of time. They should have whatever 10 days or 20 days
yeah,
shift to ensure that they're clean
yeah,
when they're going
yeah.
home.
But guess what? If you do that, you're paying for them while they're not working. So that means it's more money out. And they're probably going to want a higher wage for being away from their family. So again, that's another cost consideration, that they can go home at night and they can come back in the morning. Because it'd be too expensive for them to live here. I mean, there's no excuse. There's plenty of rooms. There's plenty of place for them. They could have They could have a staff floor if they wanted.
Because the whole hotel, I understand, whole hotel was taken over, so I
Yeah.
can't go and sleep there. If I'm staying
No.
over in London and I need room for tonight, they won't let me in.
Not in this hotel. I don't know about the other hotels or how they are
So
managed.
if you think from business perspective, you wouldn't allow government to take over your facility like this, yeah? If
Mm-hmm.
they will say like, okay, Mister, we will take your 200 beds and we will house there 20 people or two buses, and then we will keep your 150 rooms empty at all the time. You wouldn't allow for this.
It depends how much they're going to pay. You
And
you know
that's what I mean. There must be incentive because
that.
it
Yeah, exactly. So
otherwise you would say, okay, so you will hold them in the wing B, yeah, we will just seal it off. You will access from the back entrance and we'll give you 30 rooms, yeah,
yeah. Well,
for those guests to.
yeah. So I think they're just paying them a lot of money. So it's like we're both in the same business with the HMOs. So, say if somebody came to you, you were managing an HMO, and they said, "We'll take it from you for 650, a month." You'd say no. If they came to you and said, "We'll take it for 1,500," you'd say yes. If they came and said, "We'll take it from you and we'll do whatever we want with it, and we'll give you 2,500," you'd say, "There's the keys." It's like, so maybe they've done a "there's the keys" job on the hotel. They've given them something which is more than they could normally earn by renting it out or letting it out to the general public. We
I would
could.
just I would just interrupt you here because we just started talking certain slang, and we got so many international viewers. So HMO stands for Housing Multiple Occupation, and in a nutshell, it means that in UK you can rent out the individual room. You'll become tenant in the room, and you share the house and facilities like kitchen, bathroom. So you're paying rent for the actual room. So that also relates to hotel because hotel works similar. They rent beds. So that's just to explain to people who don't understand what we are talking. It's very unusual that we're in the same profession, and we're discussing obviously different matter. But yeah,
But,
we just talk our slang, which other people might not
yeah,
necessarily understand.
but the thing is, what I'm saying is, there must be a lot more money for the hotel involved than what they could make ordinarily. So
Hmm.
they've been paid off. They're happy to give it over, and then the people come in and run it how they want to run it as a prison. But given that, there's plenty of rooms here that they could accommodate their staff. So they've probably got more rooms than they need, and they could have the staff living here with us.
Hmm. That would make perfect sense because if you say quarantine or isolation, that's what they should do. They shouldn't be mixing up. Okay, I did my 8 hours. I'm going to see my kiddies and my wife, and I'm gonna go to Asda for shopping. Yeah, with my 500 fellow citizens in one building. Yeah,
Mm.
and then go to shopping mall and meet another thousands of people. Yeah, just
Yeah.
it's not logical. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll be slowly wrapping up. I think I got all the question I could think of. Is this anything else you'd like to say to conclude this conversation?
For me, I, I think it's just, for everybody who says it's not right. I agree, it's not right, and I think at the end of this, we need to take this up and need to make the point that it's not right and probably seek compensation or at least an acknowledgement. But ideally, compensation for people who've been put through this when really, okay, we say on the one hand it's unlawful and probably what they're doing is unlawful, but it's also totally illogical. So how they've implemented it is totally illogical to achieve the objective that they're claiming they're trying to achieve for the reasons we've discussed so far. So the whole thing is a bit of a joke. Yeah.
Great. So I hope that you will have your daughter's wedding without any complication. This thing will be closed for you now.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're in touch. So if there's any problem and like an escalation of bullying, we will, we're here to help you. And there's one thing about community of people who connected in this unusual times because we are facing governments around the world trying to install this tyrannical model where they want to micromanage our lives. Who can you see? What can you do? What you will eat? And they just want to manage us via our smartphones. And there's many people saying no. And what we've got is like community of people. Like I told you, I've lost so many connections, business connections. I kind of felt like I'm ostracized for speaking up. So that's why I'm again price is needed for you to speak up because you're not afraid. You're in the same environment. You're dealing with the same people, and you dare to speak that this isn't right, and you've taken this position. So that's price that is needed for you. And yeah, well, obviously we need to take this further. Each individual, that's what needs to be done by individuals because that's individual claims, say against whatever Mr. Super Spreader, against the hotel owner or whoever. The people need to be taken to account because you can't take the system to account.
Yeah.
So there must be individual fault and then claim that will follow this. But again, what I said is like there is now we've connected with so many people, and there is that community of people who are saying no to this. They are saying no to mandatory. I'm censoring the word jabberwocky. Yeah. The people are saying no, and there's a strong community growing, and those people are ready to help each other, support each other, and we need to stand strong because only then we can fight this.
Yeah. Okay, and
So,
just thanks for all the kind words from people. I've not been able to read the comments out or answer everything, obviously, but thanks to everybody wishing me well, and hopefully just another few days.
yeah, so we will be wrapping up. Thank you for watching us. In one hand, it's a horror story because you've taken this very calm, and thank you for sharing this with us. But then again, this needs documenting, this needs taking this to public. Yeah, we had this suggestion of taking this to RT, UK column, light newspaper. We will contact them. It's worth to take this further. And just for now, it's just little steps we can do um, to say no, to say this is not acceptable. So thank you, Peter. Thank you for finding
Cheers, Reddy.
courage to do that. It's really important what you're doing now. And like I said, if there's any problem or things, just reach out. Yeah, there's a large community of people who wants to go through this, and they want to support each other. So we aim to help each other because
Yeah.
this is unfair play from the governments, and we just won't allow. But we need to stand united to support each other and to overcome this. So again, thank you, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.